it started with a text from Ryan Reynolds.
Oh, wow.
And I saw a text and it says, you know, I want to talk to you. And I was like, I hate this guy.
In the high-stakes world of Hollywood, Wesley Snipes was not just a star, he was a force of nature. He carved out a kingdom in the action genre, culminating in the game-changing role of Blade. But behind the silver screen's glamour lies a battlefield of egos, ambitions, and power plays. For years, whispers of Snipes being difficult to work with have echoed through the industry. But the truth is far more complex and explosive. This is the story of 6 actors who found themselves in the eye of the storm, their on-set clashes with Snipes becoming the stuff of legend. Ryan Reynolds.
I don't think he liked me very much.
Oh, really?
No.
Well, you're a very funny guy, but you
Sure.
like to cut up.
A little fun.
Sure. Were you doing that around Wesley, trying to loosen him up a bit?
The beginning of the end for the original Blade franchise was the 3rd film, Blade Trinity. By this point, Wesley Snipes was not just the lead actor, he was an executive producer, the heart and soul of the series he had built from the ground up. But the studio, New Line Cinema, had ideas of its own. They brought in David S. Goyer, the writer of the first 2 films, to direct, a decision Snipes heavily protested. They also brought in a new, younger cast, including a fast-talking comedian named Ryan Reynolds. At the time, Reynolds was known for comedies like National Lampoon's Van Wilder. He was not the global superstar he is today. His style was all about quick-witted improvisation and sarcastic humor, a style that would later define his career. This was the complete opposite of Wesley Snipes. Snipes was a dedicated method actor, a serious martial artist who embodied the stoic, intense character of Blade both on and off camera. The 2 men were like fire and ice, and the set of Blade, Trinity, became their battleground. The tension was immediate and palpable. Reynolds, trying to find some chemistry with his co-star, would crack jokes and ad-lib lines, but he was met with a wall of silence. Snipes, who was deeply unhappy with the new comedic direction of his dark, gritty franchise, completely ignored him. Reynolds would later say in an interview that he never actually met Wesley Snipes. He only ever met Blade. Snipes stayed in character for the entire production, meaning the cold, silent vampire hunter on screen was the same person Reynolds had to work with every single day. But this went far beyond a simple clash of acting styles. The animosity became personal. On set, Snipes refused to call Reynolds by his name. Instead, he would refer to the future Deadpool star as "that cracker." The situation deteriorated to the point where Snipes stopped filming scenes with Reynolds altogether. For the majority of the movie, Ryan Reynolds performed his scenes opposite Snipes' stunt double. The rest of the cast would huddle around, feeding Reynolds funny lines to say, and the director would later just cut in a close-up of Snipes' face, often showing no reaction at all. This bizarre and hostile environment led to one of the most honest moments in the film. In one scene, Reynolds' character, Hannibal King, looks at Blade and then turns to his partner, played by Jessica Biel, and improvises a line straight from his real-life experience. He asks, "He hates me, doesn't he?" Biel, without missing a beat, replies on camera, "Yeah." It was a moment of pure truth in a production drowning in conflict. In a strange twist of fate, Snipes' behavior may have accidentally created a megastar. By forcing Reynolds to carry entire scenes by himself, to invent his own dialogue, and to perform in a virtual vacuum, Snipes gave him the perfect training ground. The sarcastic, fourth-wall-breaking, joke-a-minute persona that Reynolds honed on the set of Blade. Trinity became the exact blueprint for his career-defining role as Deadpool. The on-set war that helped sink Snipes' franchise became the boot camp that launched his replacement into the Marvel stratosphere. Years later, the two would reunite for a cameo in Deadpool and Wolverine, even including a joke about their legendary feud, finally putting the 20-year-old conflict to rest. Jessica Biel,
He hates me, doesn't he? Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds wasn't the only new face on the Blade. Trinity set that drew Wesley Snipes' anger. The film introduced a team of young vampire hunters called the Night Stalkers, led by Reynolds and Jessica Biel. Biel was an actress trying to shed her wholesome image from the family TV show Seventh Heaven and break into the world of action movies. To Snipes, however, she wasn't a co-star. She was a threat. Snipes was convinced that the studio was systematically trying to push him out of his own franchise. He was not just the star. He was a producer with contractual rights over the script and director, rights he felt the studio was ignoring. He later filed a lawsuit against New Line Cinema, claiming that the real purpose of Blade, Trinity, was to sideline his character and set up a new spin-off franchise starring Reynolds and Biel. He saw his screen time being cut and the tone of his series being changed to build up these younger, whiter stars at his expense. His response on set was to give them the cold shoulder. Just as he did with Reynolds, Snipes largely refused to film scenes with Biel. She spent most of her time acting opposite his stand-in. When he did have to refer to her, he wouldn't use her name, simply calling her that girl. In an interview, Biel described the experience of working with him as weird and intimidating. She said she barely spoke more than 10 words to him during the entire shoot. She recalled the unnerving feeling of seeing him in the morning and not knowing what to say, wondering if he hated her or was angry with her. The tension and Snipes' complete withdrawal from the project culminated in one of the most infamous moments in modern film production. The scene was simple. Blade is lying on a morgue slab, believed to be dead. The script called for him to open his eyes for a dramatic close-up. It's a basic piece of acting. Wesley Snipes refused to do it. He lay there on the table with the cameras rolling and would not open his eyes. He was so unwilling to cooperate that the production team had no other choice. They had to create the effect digitally in post-production. They used CGI to make it look like Blade opened his eyes. This wasn't just an actor being difficult, it was a powerful, symbolic protest. An actor's eyes are one of their most expressive tools. By refusing to even open them, Snipes was sending a clear message to the studio and the director. In his mind, the character of Blade was already dead. The franchise he had poured his heart into had been killed by studio interference, and he was no longer willing to participate in its reanimation. The CGI eyes weren't just a bizarre special effect. They were a final, silent statement on a movie that had lost its star long before the cameras stopped rolling. Triple H.
Hey, face, you seen my dog? Have you tried the lobby?
Alongside Jessica Biel, in the new Night Stalkers team was another performer who represented the changes Snipes so deeply resented. The professional wrestler, Triple H. Known to millions of wrestling fans as The Game, Paul Levesque was making his major motion picture debut, cast as the vampire enforcer, Jarko Grimwood. The idea to cast a professional wrestler came from the producers at New Line Cinema, and director David Goyer was initially very skeptical. However, Goyer was reportedly so impressed with Triple H's comedic timing and ability to make fun of himself that he expanded the role. But for Wesley Snipes, the presence of a celebrity wrestler was just another sign that his serious, dark-toned action franchise was being turned into a campy, humor-filled spectacle. The conflict on set wasn't about a specific fight or argument with Triple H himself. Instead, the wrestler was a symbol of the larger war Snipes was waging against the studio. Snipes saw the inclusion of new, younger characters played by a TV actress and a wrestler as a clear move to dilute his authority and hijack the franchise he had pioneered. He felt he was being isolated and excluded on his own set, with the production hiring an all-white primary cast and crew that left him feeling like an outsider in the house he had built. As a result, Triple H, like Reynolds and Biel, found himself acting mostly against a stand-in. Snipes remained in his trailer for much of the production, only emerging for his close-ups. This meant that for his big Hollywood debut, Triple H rarely got to share the screen with the film's legendary star. The dynamic on set was completely fractured. On one side, you had the new cast members, Reynolds, Beale, and Triple H, who by all accounts got along well with the director and were trying to make the best of the situation. On the other side, you had Wesley Snipes, isolated in his trailer, communicating through intermediaries and post-it notes, waging a silent war against what he saw as the destruction of his legacy. The final film reflects this division. It often feels like two separate movies mashed together. One is a dark, brooding action film starring Wesley Snipes. The other is a quippy, comedic action movie starring Ryan Reynolds, Jessica Biel, and Triple H. The two rarely feel connected, a direct result of the star's refusal to engage with his new cast. The war Snipes was fighting wasn't against Triple H the man, but against what he represented, the studio's attempt to take the keys to the kingdom away from the king. Patton Oswalt.
Have you ever been laid? Many times. With ladies.
Every war needs a historian, someone to record the events for posterity. On the chaotic set of Blade Trinity, that role fell to comedian and actor Patton Oswalt. Oswalt, who played a small role as Hedges, a tech specialist for the Night Stalkers, had a front-row seat to the entire meltdown. Years later, his vivid and shocking account of the production would shape the public's entire understanding of the feud. In a now legendary 2012 interview with the AV Club, Oswalt unleashed a torrent of unbelievable stories from the set. He was the one who told the world about the infamous garbage t-shirt incident. According to Oswalt, Snipes came to set one day, saw another black actor wearing a shirt with the word garbage on it, and flew into a rage. He accused director David Goyer of being a racist and then allegedly tried to strangle him. Oswalt's stories were incredibly specific. He described how, after the alleged strangling attempt, a terrified Goyer went to a strip club and hired a group of bikers to act as his personal bodyguards on set the next day. This led to a sit-down between Snipes and Goyer, which ended so badly that Snipes refused to speak to the director for the rest of the shoot. Instead, he communicated only through post-it notes, each one signed, "From Blade." Oswalt painted a picture of a star who was completely out of control, staying in his trailer all day smoking weed and only coming out for his close-ups. He even shared an anecdote about actress Natasha Lyonne, who was playing a blind scientist. In her first scene with Snipes, she reached out to touch his face as her character would, and Snipes, staying in his cold Blade persona, just recoiled in disgust. For years, Oswalt's interview was the definitive account of what happened. His stories were so detailed and wild that they became Hollywood legend. But Wesley Snipes eventually fired back. In later interviews, he flatly denied many of Oswalt's claims, particularly the most serious one about strangling his director. Snipes made a powerful point, saying that if a muscular black man actually strangled the director of a major movie, he would have gone to jail, guaranteed. Snipes argued that people were so quick to believe Oswalt's story because of prejudice and microaggressions. He suggested that the narrative of the difficult black actor is an easy one for people to accept. He also questioned whether Oswalt, a comedian, would even know what real method acting looked like. Patton Oswalt may have only been a minor character in the film, but his words made him a major player in the story of its downfall. He wasn't an enemy Snipes fought on set, but his storytelling years later did more damage to Snipes' reputation than any on-set argument ever could. He turned a complex production breakdown into a series of hilarious but damning anecdotes, cementing an image of Wesley Snipes that would follow him for over a decade. Jennifer Lopez.
Are you just gonna leave me hanging like that?
What? No. Slow music? Oh, no. I don't dance to slow music.
Long before the wars on the set of Blade, Wesley Snipes was involved in a very different kind of conflict on the 1995 action movie Money Train. This battle wasn't over creative control or screen time. It was a deeply personal and uncomfortable clash with his young co-star, a rising talent named Jennifer Lopez. Money Train was a big deal at the time. It reunited Snipes with his White Men Can't Jump co-star Woody Harrelson, a pairing that audiences loved. Lopez, on the other hand, was just 25 years old and relatively new to the industry. She was cast as Grace Santiago, a transit cop who becomes the object of affection for both of the film's leads. According to Lopez, who spoke about the experience in a candid 1998 interview with Movie Line magazine, Snipes took a special interest in her from the very beginning. She said that even though she had a boyfriend at the time, Snipes went full-court press on her. The flirting started out as harmless fun between co-stars, but Lopez said he soon became more serious. She described how Snipes would invite the cast out, and at the end of the night, he would always make sure to drop her off last. It was then that he would try to kiss her. Lopez recalled having to repeatedly turn him down, telling him, "Wesley, please, I'm not interested in you like that." His reaction, she said, was not good. She claimed he got really upset about it, and that his ego was totally bruised. For 2 months after she rejected him, he reportedly wouldn't even talk to her. The tension came to a breaking point when it was time to film a love scene. It was Lopez's first ever intimate scene on camera, and she was terrified. She later described the experience of filming it with Snipes as horrible. She felt that as a young actress, she didn't have the power to refuse. She said, "When you first start working professionally, you push the boundaries of what you should and shouldn't do, and I didn't think I had the right to say no." To get through the uncomfortable scene, she had to ask for loud music to be played on set. Of course, Wesley Snipes had a completely different version of events. When Movie Line presented him with Lopez's account, he told a different story. He claimed that because she had never done a love scene before, she was absolutely terrified. He said the director had specifically instructed him to make her feel comfortable and that it was his job to help her through it. He saw himself as a professional mentor, telling her that if she took his advice, they would create a beautiful erotic scene. This is a classic Hollywood story of mismatched perspectives and power dynamics. He saw his actions as professional guidance, an experienced star helping a newcomer. She experienced it as unwanted pressure and a horrible, uncomfortable situation she felt powerless to stop. It was a silent battle fought not with fists, but with flirtation and fear, leaving two people with completely different memories of the same toxic event. Halle Berry.
You know, I'm sick and tired of men using love like it's some kind of disease you just catch. Love should have brought your ass home last night.
Perhaps the darkest and most serious conflict connected to Wesley Snipes involves an actress he worked with at the very beginning of her career, Halle Berry. The two starred together in Spike Lee's 1991 film Jungle Fever, a movie that explored the complexities of an interracial relationship in New York City. Berry was a newcomer, while Snipes was an established star. They dated for a short time during this period, but for years their relationship has been shrouded by a disturbing and persistent allegation. The story begins with Halle Berry herself. For decades, the Oscar-winning actress has been a vocal advocate against domestic violence, often sharing that she is a survivor. In numerous interviews, she has spoken about a past abusive relationship where an ex-boyfriend struck her with such force that it punctured her eardrum, causing her to lose about 80% of the hearing in her right ear. While Berry has been open about the injury and the abuse, she has never publicly named the man who was responsible. For years, public speculation swirled around her famous ex-boyfriends. Then, in 2004, another one of Berry's exes from the early 90s, R&B singer Christopher Williams, decided to break his silence. Williams gave an interview where he stated he was tired of people assuming he was the one who had hurt Berry. He wanted to clear his name once and for all, and in doing so, he pointed the finger directly at one man. Williams claimed, "Wesley Snipes busted her eardrum, not me." The accusation was explosive. Williams's statement gave a name to the shadowy figure from Barry's past. According to reports, other ex-boyfriends of Barry have also denied being the abuser. Through all of this, Wesley Snipes has remained publicly silent on the specific allegation. This situation is different from the other on-set feuds. It's not about creative differences or clashing egos. It's a serious accusation of physical violence that has followed both stars for much of their careers. While Halle Berry has chosen not to name her abuser, the public accusation from another person involved in her life at the time has left a permanent mark on Wesley Snipes' legacy. It remains a dark chapter, a story of alleged off-screen evil that is far more chilling than any on-screen villain he has ever played. The battles Wesley Snipes fought, both on and off the camera, defined a crucial part of his career. He was a king who saw his kingdom under siege and fought back with every tool he had, from physical intimidation and silent protest to sheer force of will. But these wars came at a great cost. His reputation was damaged, his momentum was lost, and the franchise he built was left in ruins for nearly 2 decades. Was he a misunderstood artist fighting for his vision, or a difficult star whose ego led to his own downfall? The stories from those who stood in the fire with him paint a complicated picture, one where the line between hero and villain is as blurry in real life as it is in the movies.